they played the tape back to me, and it shocked me. I didn't know what to think. I said, is that really my voice on that tape? You bet it is, boy. I says, my God, what do I do now? So while I was up in Boulder, the city got real cute, you know, the city fathers and the people in the city. The day I left, matter of fact, the night I left, they went down to our beautiful cemetery there in Ashland, Nebraska, and took this dummy and hung it by the neck in a tree, and put a big star on it, shot a hose through it and painted the hose with red like blood, and put Herb across the star with a cowboy head on it. And they really made it look big, because they went down to the mortuary and they got the ambulance out, a code 3 run, sirens, red lights, the whole works. Went over there and they very carefully took it down and put it on a stretcher and covered it up and took it back to the morgue. They thought they scared me, but they didn't, you see. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to scare me, but they didn't scare me, because I thought it was kind of funny, and I laughed about it when I read it in the paper and seen all the pictures and everything. But while I was in Boulder, they blew my car up with dynamite. And that really made me mad. I just got through paying for it. And I was furious. You know, I could have done like George C. Scott did in that movie Rage. You know, that's how mad I was. But through the whole crisis, I had one very good friend in Ashland, Nebraska. His name is Leroy Dimmitt. Very close friend. And he helped me a lot in Ashland. He was one of our relief officers in the police department. And I was really proud to have him as a friend, and his way he stuck by. My family, I really can't say. I went to my father and I said, Dad, I know you have 20-something years in the Air Force, but I asked my father point blank, I said, Dad, what do you think of UFOs? My father never said no, and he never said yes. He just said, son, if you're telling the truth, stick with it. And so I stuck with it. I thank you very much.
I have been doing hypnotherapy for 40 years and specializing in past life regression therapy for 30 years and a UFO investigator for 20. So I'm very varied, and I have experience in all phases of the paranormal and the unusual. That's my passion, is to explore the unusual. I consider myself the reporter, the investigator, and the researcher of lost knowledge. I always want to make it perfectly clear that I am not a channeler. I don't channel, and I'm not a psychic. I'm a hypnotherapist. And I've been doing hypnotherapy for 40 years. I started out way back when things were simple, and they had the old-fashioned methods. But I got into past life therapy and past life regressions about 30 years ago. That's my main field, is I do the therapy by taking people into their other lifetimes to find the answers to problems in this lifetime. And I developed my own technique, my hypnotic technique, that is very different from the ones the other hypnotists use. And that's important because I've found a way to reach the subconscious where you can find a great deal of information that way. And I can have the answers just about anything that I want. That's why I think I've been able to get the information on all the subjects that I've written about. After I began doing the past life regressions with hypnosis, they asked me to be an investigator with the UFO phenomena. This was in 1986, the same time I was working on many other projects. But I live in Arkansas, and they wanted somebody who could work with these abductees, supposed abductees. They had called in psychologists to help. Well, the psychologists would start putting them under, getting them on board the craft and starting into the scene. They would suddenly just wake the person up. And they said, sorry, I don't know what to do. I don't know what questions to ask. If it's not in the book, they don't know what to do with it. And that to me is not therapy. The person would be more confused than ever once they were woken up like that. So they wanted to know if I would help with these. They said, you've been involved in the bazaar for so long. They said, we don't think you'll be frightened. I'm not, because I just so curious that I go along with anything. But I had not done UFO cases. My method puts people into past lives, and this meant I was going to have to focus on this life. So I didn't know if it was going to work or not. The first time I did it, they were having a MUFON meeting with all the investigators at a state meeting. And they wanted me to put this woman under just so they could ask questions. They were bringing her in from Oklahoma. And she didn't know us, we didn't know her. And I said, this is a goldfish type atmosphere. Not exactly the best type of an environment to do this kind of work. But surprisingly, it worked. And they didn't know it was the first time for me to try that. I knew I had to adapt my technique. They didn't know it was my first time to do it. It worked beautifully. And after that, I began doing more and more cases with UFO phenomena. And the work I've done now for the last 20 years in this field, I have found to be positive. I know a lot of the other investigators are getting the negative and the fear, but I haven't found that. Some of the things I'm going to say might sound a little strange, because in my work, I began to have direct contact with the ETs. And that's pretty broad, but they're the ones that have been answering the questions and been telling me what's actually going on during the regressions. They said that the ideal situation would be that the person never remember anything, that they be totally blanked out, because that's the way it's supposed to be. These things have been going on since the beginning of Earth, and many of these people, they have been following them through their life with testings and with helping them their entire life. So it'd be better if they don't remember so they can go on with their life. But they said the problem is nowadays the chemistry of our brain. It's what we're exposed to with the chemicals in our food, the additives, the preservatives, and the pollutants in the air, the environment, how it affects the body. If the person is on any kind of drugs, medications, or alcohol, it affects the chemistry of the brain, so that the information that comes through is distorted. They are remembering an event like a dream. They're not remembering it the way it actually happened. They are remembering it with a distorted view of what they think happened. And then you bring in fear because they don't understand it. And they said fear is the strongest emotion that humans have. And when you bring in the fear, it colors the whole experience. So, like they have these support groups, I've been to some of them, and to me, I don't think it's therapy. It's just each one's fear playing off the other person's fear. So when I began doing the session, in my technique, I'm able to get the conscious mind, the emotions out of the way, so that doesn't interfere with what we're getting. You get into the deeper part of the person, you get the real meaning of what's happening. And when that happens, they'll wake up and say, well, if that's what happened, I can handle it. And then we can get therapy. And it's never the fear-based things that the other therapists